What if the supernatural is not happening because you're not naturally super? I want you all to listen carefully, because this may be one of the most powerful things you will ever understand about the Bible. The supernatural was never supposed to be something believers merely visit occasionally. It was supposed to flow from a life that is continually aligned with the nature of God. And when you become naturally super, the supernatural begins to become normal. Now, before somebody misunderstands what I'm saying, I am not saying that we become God. I am not teaching that human beings possess divine power independently from God. What I am saying is that when a person is born again, filled with the Holy Spirit, walking in holiness and living in obedience, the nature of God begins to express itself through that surrendered vessel. So the first thing that we must understand is the nature of God. John 4 Verse 24 says this: God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, God does not merely operate in the spirit. God is the spirit. That means his nature is spiritual, and nature is what something does according to what it is. A bird does not have to attend a conference to learn how to fly. That is what it was created to do, fly. A fish does not have to pray for the ability to breathe underwater. It is a fish. It was created that way. Your physical body does not require a prophetic word before it can breathe. Breathing is a part of your natural design. When you become thirsty, you naturally look for something to drink. When you drink water, you naturally swallow. You do not stop after every sip and pray, Lord, help me swallow this water. You want me to tell you why? It's because swallowing has already been built into the design of your body. And every realm that you live in, you're supposed to have natural authority over that realm. For instance, the air is the realm that birds occupy. They have authority over that realm. This is why they can fly. Water is the realm that whales, dolphins, and fish have legal authority over. That's why they break the natural law of being able to breathe underwater. To them, that realm is natural for them to breathe in. Likewise, we were given dominion over all of the earth. This is a realm, watch this, that we are supposed to naturally be operating in. Miracles, signs, and wonders are supposed to happen naturally. So I have a question. If the birds have authority over the air realm and they break the law of physics by flying, if fish are supposed to have authority over the aquatic realm, and they break the law of breathing underwater because that's the realm they have authority over, why are human beings being human in a realm we're supposed to be naturally super in? Ooh, watch this. Therefore, because God is a spirit, spiritual activity is not difficult for God. God does not struggle to hear the spirit. God does not struggle to see in the spirit. God does not struggle to heal. God does not struggle to deliver. God does not struggle to perform miracles. He is not attempting to become spiritual. Spirituality flows from who he is. But watch this now. Genesis 1:26 begins to explain something amazing to us. Look what it says. It says, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creepy thing that creepeth upon the earth. And watch this. We were created in the image and likeness of God. That does not mean that we are God's equal. There is only one eternal, sovereign, and uncreated God. Humanity was created to reflect God's character, represent his government, and exercise delegated dominion under his authority. I want you to understand something. The Bible said he gave us authority over the fowls of the air. That's the birds, not the air itself. Over the fish of the sea. That's the fish, not the sea itself. Over every cattle and everything that creepeth on the earth. But then also gave us authority over the earth, because the earth is the realm we're supposed to dominate in. My God, this is so good. Why is this here? So what happened to that authority in that realm? I'll tell you what happened. Sin damaged humanity's fellowship with God, but through Jesus Christ, we are born again and restored to spiritual life. 2 Peter 1:4 says this, whereby are given unto us exceedingly great and precious promises, that by these you might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. Now, I want you to notice the language here, okay? We are partakers of the divine nature. We do not become the source of divinity. We become participants in the life God gives us through Christ. That means we must begin to reflect his love. We must begin to reflect his holiness. We must begin to reflect his authority. We must begin to reflect his compassion. And through the Holy Spirit, we become vessels through whom his power can operate. Now, this is what the phrase naturally super becomes important. The word supernatural is a useful word, but the word itself does not appear in the King James Bible. It is a human term used to describe events that go beyond ordinary natural explanation. I'll give you an example. Miracles, healing, signs and wonders, deliverance, demons being cast out, angelic activity, prophecy, divine protection, supernatural provision. The word gives us a category for the extraordinary works of God. There is nothing wrong with using the word supernatural. I believe in the supernatural. I preach and teach the supernatural. I expect the supernatural. But what if God does not want his power to remain an occasional event in the lives of believers? I need y'all to hear me here because it's about to get real good. What if he wants spiritual sensitivity, obedience, and availability to become part of our normal Christian experience? What if the supernatural is God's activity, but being naturally super is the believer's posture? Oh, let's get into it. The supernatural is what God does. Being naturally super describes a person who has become consistently yielded to the one who does the supernatural. I hope y'all are hearing this. Watch this. It means that prayer is not merely an emergency response. Prayer has become your nature. Worship is not something you only do when music is playing on a Sunday or a Wednesday. Worship has become your nature. Obedience is not something you negotiate with God about. It's not something you come into alignment with because you had a prophetic word. Obedience has become your nature. Compassion for the sick is not something that must be forced. It begins flowing naturally because you have spent time with the healer. Discernment does not only activate when you are standing behind a pulpit. You become spiritually alert throughout every day of your life. This is why willingness and obedience are so important. This is so good, you all. I hope you all are enjoying this. If you're enjoying this at this point, write in the comment section. This is good to me, Apostle. Isaiah 1:19 says this: if ye be willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. Watch this now. God is looking for more than gifted people. He is looking for willing people. He is looking for obedient people. You can be gifted and rebellious. You can be anointed and unwilling. You can understand all spiritual things while resisting spiritual instruction. Oh, God, what? He said, if you be willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. I want you to understand, there's a lot of you under the sound of my voice, you are eating, but you're not eating good, because it's not until you start eating good that you start eating God's provision for your life. God told me to tell you this, and I want to prophesy to everybody at this point that has made it to this far in the message. And I want to tell you this, that God told me to prophesy that there's still good on your land. There's still good on your land. I want somebody to write in the comment section, I'm about to eat good. There's still good on your land. You've been walking around and you've been wondering, God, when it's going to happen. You feel like you've exhausted all your resources. There's nothing left. You've been digging and plowing in that place, in that city, on that job, in that business, and nothing has happened. And God said there's still good in your land. There's still things in your soil that has not manifested yet. And it hasn't manifested because you haven't lined up properly with being willing and obedient. So watch this. But when willingness and obedience begin to come together, you become a vessel God can trust. Willingness says, Lord, I am available. Obedience says, Lord, I will follow your instructions. When availability meets obedience, the nature and power of God can move through your life without constantly encountering the resistance of your flesh. Now, let's talk about holiness. We're going to, this is going to be kind of lengthy, you all. 1 Peter 1 verse 15 through 16 says this. It says, but as he which hath called you is holy, so be ye holy in all manner of conversation. Watch this. Because it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy. Holiness is not merely a church personality. Holiness is not wearing a certain facial expression. Holiness is not acting strange so people will believe you are spiritual. Holiness is the nature of God being expressed through a life that has been separated unto him. God does not have to work to be holy because God is holy. Holiness flows from his divine nature. And when we are born again, his spirit begins working in us to produce a holy life. However, we must be careful here. Holiness is not automatic in the sense that believers have no choices or responsibility. We still must yield to the Holy Spirit. We must renew our minds. We must deny our flesh. We must obey the word. Galatians 5 verse 16 says this. This I say then, walk in the spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. The fallen flesh naturally gravitates towards sin, but the Holy Spirit living within the believer produces new desires, new convictions, and new power to resist sin. That is why the Christian life should not be a constant attempt to manufacture holiness through human strength or stamina. We should walk with the Holy Spirit until obedience begins to become our normal response. You should not have to fight for 30 days before deciding whether you will forgive somebody, because forgiveness should begin flowing from your new nature. You should not have to receive 5 prophetic words before deciding to tell the truth. Truth should flow from your new nature. You should not have to be begged to love people, because love should flow from your new nature. You should not have to be manipulated into obeying God, because obedience should increasingly become your nature because you have learned to trust the Father. And as our nature comes into agreement with his nature, spiritual activity begins to flow more freely. Jesus spoke to a fig tree in Mark 11 verse 13 and 14. Look what it says. It says, and seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, he came if happily he might find anything thereon. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for the time of figs was not yet. And Jesus answered and said unto it, no man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. And the disciples heard it. Jesus spoke to a tree, and the tree responded to his authority. Moses was instructed to speak to a rock. Numbers 20 and 8. Look what it says. It says, take the rod, and gather thou the assembly together, thou and Aaron, thy brother, and speak ye unto the rock before their eyes, and it shall give forth his water. And thou shalt bring forth to them water out of the rock. So thou shalt give the congregation and their beasts to drink. The rock was supposed to respond to the spoken instruction. Moses struck the rock instead of following God's precise command. The power of that moment was connected to obedience. This teaches us that supernatural results are not produced by copying somebody else's reactions or actions. They flow through obedience to God's present instruction. Sometimes God will tell you to speak. Sometimes he might tell you to lay hands. Sometimes he may tell you to wait. And sometimes he may tell you to move. So being naturally super does not mean performing spiritual activities whenever we choose. It means becoming so sensitive to the Holy Spirit that obedience becomes our immediate response. John said in John chapter 14, verse 12, it says, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. Jesus expected his works to continue throughout his people. Mark 16, verse 17 to 18 says, and these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents. And if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. Notice that Jesus did not say believers should chase signs. He said signs would follow believers. We do not follow after miracles. Miracles follow yielded faith and obedience according to the will of God. When you line up with God, miracles will chase you. That means we should remain available every day, available to pray for the sick, available to speak encouragement, available to host the presence of God, available to drive out demons, available to minister however God instructs us. This does not mean every believer will see an angel every morning. It does not mean every believer will raise the dead every afternoon. It does not mean we control miracles. The Holy Spirit is sovereign, but it does mean that miraculous ministry should not feel completely foreign to a spirit-filled believer. We should live our lives ready and sensitive for the move of God at all times. I want to close by saying this. Though the phrase supernatural is not in the Bible, I believe that it is a divine revelation ushered into the earth realm to explain the move of God. God spoke to me and he said, when we become naturally super, the supernatural will become normal. Imagine a day where hospitals are empty. That's because no one is sick in that city. That was a church active, that was on fire, that was naturally spiritual, that was naturally holy. And so they were naturally super. And the supernatural happened normally. Imagine a year and a time where raising the dead is just raising the dead. It's like breathing. That's not saying we're not excited about it. That's not saying we get used to the move of God. It's saying that we're so sensitive and we're so aligned and we're so in tune that miracles are happening normally. Imagine a day where you can pick any church you want to go to because every ministry is operating in the supernatural. Every single one. No one has a monopoly on the glory of God. Imagine that day. God has spoken to me and he said, son, I need you to train in the supernatural. And in order for you to train, you yourself must be trained more. I end by saying this. Find someone that can train you in the realms of the spirit. Because if you don't know, you can't function. And sometimes you got to go far off to find someone. Sometimes you have to be willing to pay to hop on a plane, fly overseas, drive countless hours to get what God has placed on the inside of a man. So, are you supernatural? Or are you naturally super, operating in the supernatural? You let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this teaching on the supernatural and being naturally super, please consider joining the Revelation Room by clicking that link in the comment section below. God bless you.